think, this is a huge, I mean, when it comes to women, this is how we are brainwashed.
Oh boy, let's hear how women are brainwashed and how everything is everybody else's fault and we're just victims. I'm gonna say there's no brainwashing that goes on in society, but at the same time, a lot of the things that I hear women claiming to be the fault of society or men is usually just something that is quite natural or something that is established by other women. And yes, I'm getting ahead of myself because the video is titled Breaking Free, Breaking Down Society's Sexualization of Women.
And I want to speak to this for a minute is, you know, we women are brainwashed to believe that we have to be sexual, right? In growing up in school, you'll see that, the popular girls are the ones who have the boyfriends. The popular girls, presumably at a young age are promiscuous. And that's why they have the boyfriends and that's why they're popular.
No, we're promiscuous at that age because we have hormones and we want to have sex. Like, that's a very human element. That is one of the very issues I find, and this is why this is kind of ironic, this person saying this, because in what she said alone seems to imply that women at their core are not allowed to be sexual, or that if we are, there's something wrong with us, or society did something to us. If you put a girl and a boy in a room together and there is no outside influence whatsoever, they're going to end up fucking. Like, it is what it is. Human beings are very sexual beings. We're mammals. We are driven to reproduce. So trying to make it seem as though there's something wrong with women that are sexual or naturally sexual is actually taking a step backwards in women's rights. Okay, maybe not women's rights, but people have this misconception that, oh, women don't watch porn, women don't like sex as much as men. Yeah, we do. I mean, when little boys have that issue and they're going about and they're chasing women or they're chasing girls their age and stuff, everyone's like, oh, he's just being a boy. But somehow, to the parents, when they discover that their child or daughter is having sex or she's interested in boys, all of a sudden it's a big issue. And it's not just the pregnancy aspect of it. It is this expectation that she shouldn't have any feelings or any sexual drive whatsoever. I would even argue that that leads to hypersexualization because now you have a group of repressed people that are being shamed for something that occurs very natural in both sexes.
And it's this sort of like social hierarchy that starts at the top with the women who are promiscuous and sexualized. And those are also the girls who are wearing makeup, et cetera, et cetera. And then you follow that further along in life. And California is a prime target for this brainwashing where in California, women believe that they have to stay young.
Oh my god, it's so infuriating how people just lack knowledge of biology. Okay, let's break it down. The reason why this occurs in almost every culture, providing that the culture doesn't actually repress or oppress women and force them to wear clothes to cover up, like this woman is wearing. We women, naturally, most of us, the majority of us, want male attention. It is what drives us. Even if we're not interested in having a child, we have the hormones that tell us, that man over there, I really like him. I really want him to like me. I think about having sex with that guy and I want him to rail me. I want to be his partner. I want him to mount me. I know this sounds vulgar and I don't know why people are afraid to talk about this because we see it in almost every single mammal. We see it in reptiles, we see it in birds. It is just what it is. And you know what the very prevailing thing is in reproduction and courting? Competition. With females and with males. It's mostly with males at the times, but it's also with females. You'll see that with female birds. You'll see that with female mammals. There is always competition. They want the male that can give them the resources or that is fit. And if another woman or a female is and this is providing it's not a herd mentality because we have some herd animals like zebras and equines, and even still within the herd, they will work out a social hierarchy. It doesn't necessarily mean that the other females won't have access to the male, but there is a female that calls the shots, and she is the one that sets the example for all the other females, and she's the leader of them. But yes, at the core, animals are competitive. it is normal because males are competitive with each other because they want more access to females. The females will be competitive with each other because they want access to male and the male's resources. The hypergamy thing, it is a real thing and it is driven. It is instinctive. I don't know why people think that because we're civilized that those instincts just go away. And now to the point where I don't know if it's religion or what have you, but we're operating outside of our natural inclinations and being told and made to think that there's something wrong with us if we acknowledge that they exist. It's not society brainwashing women. This has been a thing before society has even been a thing. And you'll know this because if you go to other tribes, you will see the same thing. You will see the very same thing. Men will still like breasts. Women will still try to compete with each other. And maybe the standards of beauty might be different there. Maybe a woman maybe wearing a plate in her lip, and the bigger the plate is, the more attractive she looks because that's what they have solidified as part of their attraction in their culture. The longer hair she has, the curlier hair she has, the wider eyes, wider teeth, the bigger hips, whatever it is. And sometimes what will happen, a lot of the time actually, here's this weird thing, right? When a male sees another male getting attention from females because the females like that male, they will try to compete. They see that that male is a good hunter and females gravitate towards him and he has more access to females. What does the other male do? He decides to become a better hunter too or fight that male to get rid of the competition. A female will see that females with younger features get picked by males more. They want to have male attention. They want to spread their legs and have someone wash their insides out with the man cream. So they're going to try and compete with that female because they want that. We're not freaking objects sitting on a shelf. We have feelings. We have hormones. Those drive us. So as a result, if one female sees that other girls are getting attention and she really likes boys and she really wants to get fucked, she is going to also replicate what those females are doing to get that male attention. It is not a brainwashing. It is something that women themselves implement so they can compete with other women. It's not society doing that because in places where we don't have the same society as in the Western Hemisphere, they do it regardless. It's surprising how this is such a foreign concept for people.
That their value is associated with their youth and beauty. And, to some extent you could say that that notion is built into our instincts, like, that youth and beauty is associated with, your value as a woman, okay?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. Doesn't mean that you're any less valuable as a human being, but if you have a man that wants to start a family and he wants someone who can give him children, yes, he's going to gravitate towards a woman who is able to have children. It doesn't mean that she's not valuable in society or valuable as a human being. But yes, built within us, you're going to want women that look younger or tighter. Doesn't mean that older women are not going to get attention too. They may have to go with much older males who would look at them being super young in comparison. But here's the thing. Here's how you know it's a bunch of shit, because women say this and they're like, it's instinct, but our values should be tight. Okay, fair enough. Why don't you pick old men? Why don't you pick old men? Why is it even older women are gravitating when they see a young 20-something-year-old guy, they will still be like salivating over him. And if he gave them the time of day, they would let him. You don't think it's built in? You don't think it's built in for humans to be attracted to beauty? And the beauty, things that we find beautiful naturally across the board, the majority of us, could be something that is built into our species for reproduction. Like, why would we gravitate towards super old people? I mean, they have each other, but why would we gravitate towards super old people when we can have someone our age and reproduce with them? Why would we gravitate towards sickly people when we know there's a chance that person may die or they can't take care of me and our children? The lizard brain, I know everyone jokes about that, but our little monkey brain, it tells us things for a reason. Our DNA is built around those instincts for a reason. Let's hear the excuse despite her having admitted that it's instinct.
So, but we don't give any value to wisdom. We don't give any value to grace. We don't give any value to, that person who's lived a bit of life. That's just frowned upon. So you see women who are, you see it in Hollywood, from the actors and actresses and whatnot. It's the same thing with everyday life in California. To any kind of beach community, you're going to find rich people who emulate Hollywood and are looking like Madonna at a certain age. Well, you're a grandmother. You're old enough to be a grandmother, but you look with this puff out face, and no one can tell your age anymore.
This woman is having two different conversations. And if you're talking about California and the Hollywood sphere, I think that's a completely different and overblown extreme version of what you're talking about. You kind of are talking about two different subjects here. We're talking about women being brainwashed versus women being ultra competitive because if they don't stay young, then they lose their job as an actress or a celebrity. We're talking about women helping or teaching other women to accept their place in their age. An actor's life and their view on things is completely different from the regular people. They have money to do those things, and there's a delusion that happens because, I'm sorry, most actors are narcissists. So you cannot put them all in the same boat with high school girls and women. Yes, I will admit that there is society that will overblow certain things and try to trick women into thinking you could do this, you could do that, rather than to just embrace aging gracefully. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong if women want to get Botox or breast implants or something because they want to look more beautiful or they feel like they want to look more beautiful. Like for me, example, my tits are way too big. I just feel like they just don't belong on my body. I have extreme body dysmorphia with that shit, and I hate when people look at them. No matter what I'm wearing, people are just gawking because they're fucking huge. I would love to have breast reduction surgery. It doesn't mean that I don't have value as a woman. It doesn't mean that I hate myself. I just feel like, man, I would feel better if I can run and not feel like there's two freaking leprechauns on my goddamn chest. Like, that's just my preference. Now, I understand that there is the extreme body dysmorphia and delusion and the deniability of people aging. Like, when you get to a certain age, everybody ages, everybody will get there. And I think these people went in from a young age when they go into Hollywood and celebrity status where they're so used to the attention, the extreme attention most women or most people wouldn't get. And then they go crazy when they realize they're not relevant anymore. Part of it is because they know that they won't have a job, because I'm sorry, but having a job as an actor isn't something that is completely guaranteed throughout your whole life, especially if you're a woman. Also, if you're a dude. So the dudes get away with it a little better because of their acting chops. But if you went into the celebrity status just based on your looks alone, you must know that that's not going to last forever. And people try to hold on to it as long as possible to stay relevant. Now, that is their choice. Society is saying, look, this is what people like. They're literally using the same thing that drives us as human beings, which is to want to look at things that are beautiful. And then they, perpetuate that. And then the women will make the decision, well, I can save my money and say, well, it's been great. It's been a great run. Let me just retire now. But most of them will choose to keep going because they're like, no, I wasted all my money, or I don't want to not be relevant anymore. I don't want people to not look at me anymore. And that's a them problem. That's something that's within them. Society didn't do that. Society couldn't do that. They couldn't hijack that if there was nothing to hijack. So you take celebrity out of it, you take society out of it, you put us back in the Stone Ages, and I promise you the same thing will occur time and time again.
And the sexualization, it's a brainwashing mechanism. It's not good for our society. And then we wonder why our girls become single mothers.
Their girls become single mothers because could be their choice, but a lot of these girls don't have mothers and fathers at home to raise them a certain way to learn how to accept the realities of life. We live in a society, I like Joker. We live in a society where people are given everything they want. If you feel a way, everyone is supposed to just bend down and suck your toes for you and be completely okay with that and live in your grand delusions and accept all your delusions and just pretend that you're not mentally ill. And a lot of these people are walking around mentally ill, and people are bending over backwards to not hurt their feelings rather than to tell them the truth, which is, hey, you're getting old. You're getting old. And if someone's like, oh, you're old, so what? Yeah, and you're gonna get there too, boy. You're gonna get there too, girl. And I respect old people. I really respect old people because they've lived through some shit. And I know that I probably can't handle half the stuff that these people have because they just come from a different time. It's like going through a time machine and seeing something that existed way before you came into existence. And I think it's beautiful. I love listening to them. Even though they tell the same stories over and over again, I enjoy listening to them. I had this next door neighbor, she's dead now, but she adopted me, and she would tell me, like, the little town where she lived, she would tell me oh, all these houses used to be shops, and we used to do this, and we had this hill, and my brothers and I used to go down there, and she'll be showing me around this old town that basically there's nobody else there. There's a Polish town. Nobody else is there. Like, she's one of 3 old people that still live there who existed when this town looked completely different. And she's telling me all these stories, and I feel happy and I feel honored to just sit under her and listen to her stories. And I tried to carry them forward because she was so instrumental and she was strong. And she lived in a much simpler time. And when she tells me about this time, it kind of makes me miss something that I never had. So I don't understand how people can look at that and be like, well, you're old. We're all gonna get there eventually. You do realize that, right? And some of y'all making fun of these old people are gonna look worse than them when you get to their age. But anyway, my grandfather's another example. He lived to be 106. I mean, he's built a lot of the buildings and infrastructure back in my country. And that's crazy. I don't know, like, if I ever go back there, I would love to know, like, because he told his son, like, some of the buildings that he built and stuff, but I would love to see, hey, my grandfather built that. He built that. Like, that thing is still standing from he built it from he was in his 20s. This dude was alive a long freaking time. Like, that to me is amazing. That to me is amazing. And a lot of my people, especially on my mom's side of the family, they live well into their 90s and their hundreds. And I only hope that I have the wisdom and the jovial demeanor that he had in even his last days of life. Always laughing, always making people laugh. He's lived through, pretty sure he has a bunch of kids everywhere too, that we don't know about. But he's lived. And people need to celebrate that more too. But the thing is, individually, people just want to compete with each other. They only see themselves. So it's not really society brainwashing people. Maybe there's a little bit of that, but they're using what you already have inside you to brainwash you. If you weren't already super emotional and gullible, people couldn't take advantage of you. And I think that we have to take that into account when we start blaming everything on society. I mean, we have to have some accountability to ourselves as well. Especially the parents who just let their kids run rampant and teach them stuff or don't teach them at all. Don't teach them consequences for their actions or whatnot, and don't teach them about life. If a mother sees, or a child sees that her mother is not accepting the realities of life, she's going to follow in her mother's footsteps because she has those wants and she's seeing that's how her mom handles it.
It's because they're so sexualized at a young age before they're ever able to discern what makes a good man, what makes a good husband, who would be a good father for my children, because I might pop a kid out if I'm sexually active. Don't you think I should have a marriage first to guarantee and lock him in to say that, hey, he's going to be there. If he becomes a father of my child, he's for sure going to be there and co-parent with me.
I don't know where people got this notion that when you get a guy to marry you, that just solves all your problems. I mean, maybe back in the day it did when men had complete control over things, but hate to break it to you, but getting married to someone doesn't mean they're going to stick around to take care of your kid. Doesn't mean that they're going to be a good parent or a good husband or that they're going to stay around at all. Like, telling women that they have to just depend on marriage to be their end all, be all for their problems and to lock a guy in is the wrong way to go about things. A guy should want to marry you because he wants to marry you, because you want to get married. Women mostly want to get married, but he should marry you because he wants to marry you, become a family with you. Trying to lock him in, I feel, is a way of brainwashing women. It's so ironic she's talking about brainwashing women, society brainwashing women. But can we talk about how marriage has also, this notion of marriage brainwashes people as well? Oh, if you get married, you live happily ever after. And your parents are pushing you to get married. Not saying anything's wrong with marriage. Marriage is beautiful. But saying that marriage, like, people should wait before they get married to have sex, I feel is so irresponsible. Like, what if you get married to this person and you realize that doesn't have a sex drive at all? Like, he doesn't want sex, period, Or it's, yeah, you can learn, but now you're like, oh, I only like to fuck in the ass, man. Like, you're like, bro, what? So I'm married and I'm stuck like this because now I can't get out because religion and shit. You should get to know people. Now, yes, you can get to know people ahead of time, but when it comes to sexual compatibility, I think that's a big thing. And then you have a bunch of people going out there and cheating regardless of them being married because they're unsatisfied. I think it's important, like, if you're to test run a relationship. Like, I used to believe that stuff because I grew up Christian, not anymore, but that was the whole thing too. And guess what happened? Regardless of my mom teaching me to wait before marriage, I still fuck people. Yes, because I fell in love with this guy and I really loved him and I want to marry him, but because I'm horny as shit, Of course I'm going to sleep with him. Like, it is what it is. Like, people have feelings, and the more you try to ignore that those things exist is the worse they become, because now humans have this weird thing with reverse psychology where you tell them not to do something that is burned within them to do, and they're like, oh shit, they're telling me not to do this, so I'm not going to be able to do this. I want to do it even more. And so you tell kids, if you want a kid to do something, the best way to get them not to do it is tell them that they shouldn't do it. People learn through consequences of actions. And after having been hurt so many times by people, I learned what to look for and what not to look for. Now I am married to who I think is the best man in the whole world. I mean, I've dated other people before, and he is way more the man than any of them are combined. But if I had stopped at the first person, like, that I gave myself to willingly, I'm not talking about when I was, like, molested as a child, but if I had stopped with the first person I actually legit fell in love with and had a relationship with willingly, my life would have been a disaster. Yeah, we would have gotten married, and he would have been cheating, because that's who he was. And I was too stupid, too naive, trying to fix him. You'll change with that dumb shit. And it doesn't matter. And then the thing is, you can't even have a conversation with your parents about this, because if you have a conversation with your mom, she's super religious, all she's going to tell you is, you're going to go to hell if this happens. Just think about what God would want. That doesn't fix things. That doesn't stop your hormones from raging. When a guy is next to you and he's hard and you're it's like you can't think straight. And I'm not saying people shouldn't take any accountability, but you have to be aware that this is a realistic situation with human beings, with most animals. There's a reason why when you put dogs in a room together, one's in heat, they're gonna lock. It doesn't matter. Humans are the same way. Now, we might have a little bit more self-control, but even adults, you have so many people cheating, or girls who are like, I'll never do this again with these types of guys, and they do it anyway and then beat themselves up. There's a reason why that happens, because your hormones take over, and in the moment, there's that rush and excitement. The guy's into you, you're into him. It feels fucking good. It feels amazing, and it's supposed to, because that's our inner drive to reproduce. You're never gonna get rid of that until many, many years later if we breed it out of us, which that's gonna take a very long time to do, because at our core as organisms on this planet, we've evolved to multiply. That's the whole point. So as long as we have those driving forces, you're always going to have that competition. You're always going to have those things. And I can tell you, as someone who was a Christian, who was the daughter of a very fiercely Christian family, doesn't matter how Christian you are, you may know what's wrong, but guess what? You're going to beat off and you're going to fuck people and then ask God for forgiveness. I'm just being real. If there's any parents listening to us, your children are probably fucking. It is what it is. As long as you're sure, like, okay, let me just watch them and make sure they're not doing it with freaking adults, because adults prey on children. You have to be very careful with that shit. But yeah, they have a boyfriend. Your little girl probably has boyfriends, and she doesn't even tell you because of how she can't talk to you. And whether she can or not, it's not going to stop her from having this. She may lie. She may be like, oh, I'm following God and I'm saved by the blood of Jesus. And she's out there getting rammed by her boyfriend or by several dudes. And I think it's very telling when the boys, I've seen this over and over again, when people have sons, they're allowed to date. Oh, he has a girlfriend. Oh, he has a little girlfriend. My son. When the girl has a boyfriend, what? Remember, you must be like, bro, come on. I know, as I said before, the pregnancy thing is a big, but you going in on the women like that, you know what you do? Give her birth control. Give her an IUD. Because whether you like it or not, shit's gonna pop off. And all you can do is say, hey, this is what will happen, and these are the consequences for your actions. I cannot be everywhere with you at the same time you are. I am hoping that what I taught you, but if you are gonna do this, be safe. Just understand that when these consequences happen, and this happens to you, you're making that decision. Now you have become an adult, or you're making adult decisions. Now you have to start making moves to grow up. And in my house, there are certain things I want you to do. Just understand you're going to have to deal with those consequences. It is what it is. But you're not stopping people from doing this. No matter how much you blame society, society's that way for a reason. And it's because people have it in them to want to sexualize each other. And there's always a thing where they're like, women are always hypersexualized, but no one ever talks about men being sexualized either. People will lose their minds over women wearing skimpy clothing that they choose to wear, but when men do it, oh my God, this is so amazing. They can sexualize the men all they want. A woman can go up and touch a guy's abs without his permission. Men are not allowed to do that. It's always the women's fault. You know, this discussion has to be taught if you're going to teach it from both sides, because men also have some unrealistic expectations as well, but you can't even really call those unrealistic because that's something that drives them. There are different things that drive men and women.
These concepts are not thought about or talked about. Instead, we sexualize our young kids and expect them to have good lives.
Sexualize the young kid. What are you talking about? I'm not saying there's not adults that do that, but you are shifting from conversation to conversation. First, it's about, oh, the society is brainwashing these kids to make them feel this way, so they want to be hypersexual. Then you're talking about marriage and locking a guy in, and that women should want to get married so that blah, blah, blah. Now you're talking about people sexualizing kids. Like, pick a lane, bro. What are we even talking about right now? I can't even keep up.
And way too many of the time, we end up with single moms as daughters. And parents either let her be on her own to raise the kid and be miserable and become bitter, or they adopt the child as their own and end up becoming, very active grandparents. But either way, it's not a good scenario because a father should be there.
Yes, and the most you can do is teach your child and let them make their decision. Teach them that there's consequences from their action from a very early age, and then let them decide. With or without you, your daughter is going to do what she's going to do. You cannot stop that. My mother tried to control me so very hard. Now, the foundation and the discipline that she instilled within me kept me from being, super promiscuous and sleeping around with many different people at the same time. Maybe it's my personality. I just want a relationship with whoever I'm in love with. I want to be intimate with someone who I care about. So my personality is not everybody's personality. There's some people who are way more extroverted, and they just want to have a taste of everything. And that is built within them. You see that with a lot of other primates as well. Unless there's direct consequences, like in baboons, if the females do this or males take advantage of that, they'll start fighting. Or they'll ostracize that female or what have you. If she tries to leave to go to another troop or other males, then she gets beat up by the male baboon. But it is what it is. It's a part of life. Everybody functions differently. The reason why people are like this across all cultures is because it's built into us as human beings. What we need to start doing is taking accountability for ourselves. Teaching your daughters to take accountability for themselves and to teach them that there's consequences for their actions. People are not allowed to discipline their kids nowadays. And so the kids grow up with no consequences to their actions. You can't blame them. But then again, the government doesn't want you disciplining your kids. And I don't just mean physical punishment. Like if you're like, hey, you're gonna make a life-altering decision that's permanent and you're not allowed to drink and you're 13, as long as you live in this house, we're not gonna let you do that. Then the parents get arrested or the child gets taken away from them, which is bonkers to me. So now you have a society that is not allowing the parents to discipline their kids, and the kids grow up without discipline, so they don't learn consequences for their actions or how to be held accountable for their actions, and then they just go haywire. They don't learn to rein in their instincts and be responsible with them. The parents on the flip side, they're parents that I hate when parents do this too. Like they act as though they weren't our age. And when we have feelings or do the same things they're doing, they expect us not to do them when they themselves did that and worse. Which is like, okay, why would I relate to or listen to anything you have to say when you're a fucking liar? You're treating me like I'm not supposed to be human or I'm not supposed to have fucking feelings. How are we gonna talk? I ask you one question about guys and you lose your shit and tell me to repent. Like what? It's very hard to speak to your parents or to confide in them or take anything they say seriously and not want to lie to them when you're not allowed to live your life or you're being told that you're somehow villainous for simply lusting after a guy. You like guys and you're like, I'm thinking about that. I like that. And somehow we're taught, oh, if you do that, Jesus comes at that time, you're gonna go to hell for all eternity. Well, why did he give me those feelings then? And if you're not from a Christian household and the parents are acting like that, same thing kind of applies. Okay, why do I have these feelings then? You're making me out to be a bad person, but these are feelings that I can't help having. So instead of helping me and saying, all right, this is completely normal, you're gonna have these feelings and I'm not gonna yell at you, just understand this is what can happen as a result. I trust you, but I want you to be safe. Here's a contraceptive that will prevent you. It's not going to permanently alter your body, but it will help you. Use a condom so you don't get STDs. If you get that, that's on you. Your dad and I did everything to teach you and shield you from that. But the only person that can protect you after we've given you advice is yourself. And I believe that you're old enough and responsible enough to make those decisions. And whatever decisions you make, you have to live with them. And then you walk away. Because you trying to be a helicopter parent and blaming society and blaming your kid, that's not going to help. Trust me, it never works. And that's why a lot of us daughters don't talk to our moms. Because our moms will be the biggest sluts when they were little. And I know they're probably like, oh, I don't want my daughter to be like me. But that's not helping. You're pushing your daughters farther away and blaming everybody else, but you've not taught them to take accountability. You've not taught them to accept every part of themselves. And a big part of that for women is their sexuality. We're just these things that are supposed to be there for men to come and fuck us. And God forbid we like men, or we like looking at men, or like pleasing ourselves, or like watching stuff that looks spicy. All of a sudden, look at her. She's a freaking 304, bro. Like, come on. That's the bigger conversation to be had here. It ain't society's fault. Maybe, yeah, some of it is, but guess what? You're not going to change society. Society's going to continue feeding off of our weaknesses and our instincts. That's what society and marketing does. The least you can do is on an individual level be accountable for your own freaking actions and understand that you live in the real world. And the real world has real consequences. And however you feel is who you are as a human. If you have feelings, if you're in a relationship with a guy and you're a girl, and this man loves you and you love this man, nothing wrong with finding other men attractive. But just understand that if you fuck around, you will lose that man. And sometimes people need to have that consequence. And that man needs to not take you back and simp, because that will perpetuate the behavior for you to keep cheating. Same thing the other way around. These women are like, men are all dogs. But then when they do these actions, you keep taking them back and fucking them anyway. And then you get mad at men when you're perpetuating the behavior by rewarding it. Each of the sexes need to take their own accountability. If you see that society is pushing sex in your face all the time, have some self-control, learn some self-control, accept that this is part of your instinct and you like that, but then redirect it and say, I'm not gonna do this thing. If you're addicted to porn, just be like, I'm cutting it off at a certain time of the night so I can get stuff done. Because these people are getting rich off of this. I'm not. It just all boils down to accountability, individual accountability. And once you have individual accountability, everyone as a society will become better, because every person is being accountable for their own good behavior. Trying to change the bulk of society does not work until people individually have an epiphany and come together and try to help others and not judge others, work on themselves. And you know what happens when someone works on themselves? Other people see them doing that, and then they start to work on themselves too. They get inspired, they start to work on themselves, they hit rock bottom, they realize there are consequences to their actions, they don't like feeling this way, and then you have a society that keeps each other in line but keeps yourselves in line as well, and you'll be fine. It's really not that difficult. But let's stop blaming entertainment specifically for hypersexualization of women, because trust me, that's not it. Women do what they want. No one's holding a gun to these women's heads and telling them to take these roles or to take off their clothes and do whatever. They want this, and they're willing to do those things to get where they want to go. If you really have a problem with women having that issue, then speak to other women.